All right. Welcome back to the Prospect Podcast. I have my co-host, Coach D, with me, as always. And we have a great guest today, the head coach of the Lawrenceville School, Coach Napoleon Sykes. It's great to have him on. Coach has really had quite a career already. Today he played, I think, high school ball at Gilman, played at Wake Forest.
Yeah.
As a coach, he's been in high school, he's been in college, he was at Wake Forest, he was at Mallard Creek, he was at the Naval Academy, he was recruiting coordinator at Charlotte. He's really done some amazing things. He was a Bill Walsh coaching fellow in the NFL 2 times, and he's been now at the Lawrenceville School for I think almost 4 years, coming up on 4 years. So it's really, really great to have you on. Quite a breadth of experience, very, very diverse experience as far as from a coaching standpoint, like a lot of different roles. Coach, I touched on your background. Talk a little bit more about it, and then we'll dive into it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, appreciate you guys having me on. Like I said, right before we came on, I'm glad we could get this worked out. But I was originally from Baltimore. I was a soccer kid, like grew up playing soccer. Like we weren't allowed to play football. I don't know if we were not allowed or it just didn't work out. And so when I actually got to Gilman in 7th grade, I played for a really high level soccer team outside of school. So I just decided to try football for the first time, and really fell in love with the game. But more importantly, my introduction to football was, they wrote a book about it, Season of Life. But it was
great book. Absolutely great book. Written by a legend, by the way.
Yeah, no doubt. And so my head coach was Biff Poggi, who's up at Michigan, and Joe Ehrman, who's like a legend in, just in the field for how to coach kids and how to raise men. And so that was my introduction to football. And that was really what kept me into football. I mean, it was the culture, the environment, those pieces were the thing that I fell in love with. And then so really from that point on, I kind of chased that same environment. So which is kind of shows you how, like, where I've been and who I've worked for. So ended up playing at Wake Forest University. Coach Grobe and that staff with like Brad Lambert, Steve Lebowski, a bunch of different guys. Troy Calhoun at Air Force was on that staff. So like had a lot of transformational coaches that were really invested in just you as a person, not just you as the football player. And then so after graduated from college, had an opportunity to go back and coach at Gilman, to be back in that environment. Then back to Wake, ended up coaching for Ken Niumatalolo at Navy, which was, similar situation, had opportunities that time to go to some different staffs, but ended up at Navy because of the type of environment that they were creating there, right? The way that they coached, the way that they talked to kids and how they built kids up. And so like throughout my career, I've just chased, went to Charlotte and started football from scratch with Brad Lambert, similar kind of guy. He was my position coach in college, but a guy that was a player's coach in a different kind of way. And then had an opportunity to be with Pep Hamilton in the XFL, who's been a close friend for a lot of years. And just a guy that I think has done a really good job of, even coaching at the professional levels, always being a guy that's down to earth and trying to help guys progress as men, not just football players. So like, that's kind of where I've been, and how I've gotten to where I've gotten. And, I think the thing that has stayed the same, if you like go back to the book Season of Life, like that is the culture that I've chased. And then now having an opportunity to do that as a head coach, wanted to try and create an environment and a culture like that here at Lawrenceville.
Very cool. And going from, I guess, playing at the Gilman School yourself, that wasn't, and coaching there, it was not a huge adjustment going and coaching at a prep school because you already had experience with it growing up. You know what I mean? So you kind of know what that is like. What was there any kind of thought process to the different kind of roles you ended on taking on, or it was, hey, let me get whatever role they want to take me in, and then I'll just grow from there?
Yeah, I just, like I kind of give a lot of credit to, the way I move professionally is I give all that credit to my mom. And, she's just always like, look, take opportunities when you're younger to learn as
Yep.
much as you can, and so like, I was fortunate enough to, like, it was this old school myth that like the Wake Forest GAs always got good jobs, just because it was, like out of that same group, you had like Brad White, who's at Kentucky, James Adams at Michigan State, Dominic Anderson, who was one of the top defensive coordinators at D2, was a GA there. All of us former players, Chris Barclay at Louisville, but we all, a lot of that was because of Coach Grobe. Coach Grobe was the guy, and so helped us out. But like, I think, just even there, his philosophy was you GA'd on one side of the ball, the next year you GA'd on the other side of the ball. And like, I just came up in a different era of coaching where you tried to learn as much as you could. Like you had to cut film and you had to like do all the little jobs, all the big jobs. You did offense, you did special teams, you did, defense, you did recruiting, you did operations stuff. So like, I've just always been in that mind frame of when you're young, you try to take on as much as you can so that you can learn as much as you possibly can ingest, and then eventually you figure out who you are and how you want to take that route, and so like for me that meant being a defensive guy primarily, but having the knowledge that I've coached on the offensive side of the ball, and then that has obviously helped being a head coach, being able to mentor coaches, and also just kind of have like a oversight of what's going on everywhere and having enough knowledge to be dangerous a little bit, so yeah, that really has been the goal for me, is you just trying to build as much knowledge as you can with the eventual goal of being a head coach.
Well, I think that also, Coach, like that makes you more marketable in the grand scheme of things, right? Like, because, a lot of these guys, you see a lot of these young guys coming up now, and not to play, the old head here, but, they're not willing to go through that grind of, hey, man, I got to fit helmets today, or I got to count jerseys, or, hey, I got to break down the film, or I got to do the scout cards. A lot of these guys now come in and they think they should be the play caller. They think they should have, a lot of guys chase titles and things of that nature. I think for you, fortunate enough, you grew up or came up in an era where those coaches focused on building who you were as a coach, and, gain as much knowledge, do the dirty work now. I heard a coach once told me, stay broke as long as possible.
Yeah.
Right. Because that's kind of the road to it. And once you go through all of that, you have some knowledge base. And also when you do become that head coach, what those guys below you are going through, sleeping in the office, trying to get things done, not making much money, but making it work. Right. Like those are the things that now have shaped you into the role that you are today.
Yeah. And I think it's been great. I mean, one of the things that I think we've done a really good job of here is, building a strong coaching staff. We've got like great coaches here. Pat Laughlin's our associate head coach and offensive coordinator. He's been a head coach. He was a head coach at Petty. He's like coming here and being able to be the offensive coordinator and really kind of run recruiting here. He's had an opportunity to like up his game. And like, I think he's a guy that was, like in the next couple of years is going to be a head coach or be coaching at the collegiate level. Like Long Ding is a guy that played. I mean, he's first Chinese born player to play in the NFL. He's like got some connections and leans on stuff from when he played in the NFL. And like, I think, Joe Gagliardi's our DB coach. She was coaching like rec ball, like not that long ago. I mean, like you look back maybe like 4 years ago and she's coaching, Pop Warner football. And then, fast forward to 2024, she's with the Raiders, and so like, I think, to your point, it's given me the opportunity to where at the high school level where you may have today we go to practice and a coach just miss them because they have something else going on. You can go and grab a position group and, coach it with some credibility. But at the same time, I think going back to your point, has been really neat for me to help mentor our coaching staff. Like I'm the old dude on staff, which is crazy, and I'm only 40.
Buddy.
I know.
It is wild. It is wild when you look at it like that.
All of a sudden I'm like
it's a young man's game, right? Yep, it's a young man's game.
Yeah, but it's been great being able to help coaches like grow and take on some new opportunities for them too.
The Fifth Quarter movie with your head coach, I'm sure you've seen it. It's a great.
Yeah.
Have you seen that movie, Derek?
Yeah. Well, like, so John, so Body was one of my boys in college. I mean, we played linebacker together,
right?
And just like a phenomenal dude. And that was like, going through that the year before with his brother and passing away. That was tough, and it was really, it hit home for me because of I got one of my best friends growing up passed away in a car accident as well, and he was like, I have two older sisters, and this kid was like my little brother. So like having that experience is a tough year, but like, that next year was like a magical year for, but for Wake Forest as whole, but like just the Body family too, just having them, everybody, it was a really neat deal, man. You talk about a whole city, like not just the Wake Forest campus, but like the entire city of Winston-Salem that like rallied around that family. Was pretty neat.
Yeah. No, it was, when I watched the movie, I mean, that's like, it's an amazing story. And it was amazing. I remember you guys were undefeated, right? And it was just, an amazing year. So, I don't know if a lot of people have watched that movie. I've seen it. It's a phenomenal movie.
Yeah.
I recommend it to people. It's a great. I mean, obviously part of it's a sad story, right? Mm-hmm. But it's an uplifting story, which is really the how the town really came around you guys and him and his family. Really cool stuff. Yeah. Lawrenceville School. So talk to me a little bit about what's the process been like taking over Lawrenceville School, building it up. Talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, it was this was a unique situation, like coming out of COVID. I'd coached college football for a long time, and kind of was like, I was at Concordia Prep with Joe Battaglia, who's one of my best friends down in Baltimore, there for a year, and like, really wasn't looking to go back to high school football. I was, kind of just waiting for COVID to reset and see what happens. And then this opportunity came along, which was neat. And it was unique, like this is, coaching boarding school football is so much different than high school football, just because, we don't get 30 new freshmen playing football every year. And so like you really do have to be intentional about how you keep your numbers up and how you recruit. So it was very much what I'm used to doing for the majority of my career. Mm-hmm. Obviously, there's some parameters to it. It's almost akin to a Division III school where you're, there's no scholarships, but you're looking for kids that like can qualify for aid, or kids that are full pay, or, and trying to do that. So there's been some, there was a learning curve to it a little bit at the beginning, just coming from,
of course,
scholarship football, where you can just say, hey, look, here it is. Tell me when you want to come. So there was a little bit of growing pains to that. I think one of the things that we really tried to do when we got here is just change, the culture. There wasn't a lot of success for whatever reason prior to coming here. And so just trying to change the culture to one where, we were trying to build something special, not necessarily get the wins. Right. And so like that culture piece comes back to it, where we tried to build a place where our kids enjoyed football. Our kids enjoyed being around our coaches. They felt supported by the coaches. They felt supported by the program. And so we just gave them a little bit of life, as far as like, hey, you can come here and play football and have a great experience. And you can also come here and move on to the next level, And so I think that has been the main focus. I mean, I tell people all the time, like our football, and some people don't like it, and we probably lose kids this way, but I always tell them that football is really only a small portion of what we do here. Like we really are trying to help you grow up and be good men. and so like we focus a lot on that. And I think the process of trying to build a player a certain way is more important than necessarily looking for a win. But I do think if you can do all those things, have a strong culture, develop kids the right way, then the wins come, and I think that has shown over the last couple of years. We've kind of strung three pretty good seasons in a row and had success putting guys to the next level and all that stuff too.
And you guys are a boarding school too, right? So what's the makeup of your team as far as commuters versus boarding?
So we are, the school itself is 70% boarding, 30% day. And majority of our team are boarding students. So like somewhere, to be a boarder here, you're outside of like a 40-minute bubble. So like we'll have some kids that are, from South Jersey, like an hour and a half away, but then we've got, kids from, Nigeria, like Sam Leteju that is going to Wisconsin's from Nigeria. Raf Dunn that went to Wisconsin's from Canada. Brendan Delaney from Canada that's at Stanford. Adam Shovelin that's going to Stanford this year that just got there. Actually, he's from like PA. We've got kids from our kicker last year was from Abu Dhabi, which is crazy. So
wow.
So we've got kids. We got kids from all over the
player.
Yeah, no, he was a rugby guy.
A rugby guy.
Unique experiences though, right? For these guys. And look, we've talked to some other boarding school guys, and it's the same type of situation, right? Like maybe they're from, they're an international student and now they're coming to the state. And it's kind of like, hey, we were looking academic wise, but also now you can come and fulfill a role or do something different. And for some of these guys, it just clicks, right? And it's now you're putting them in a totally different environment. And, the other boarding school guys that we've talked to, one of the biggest things for them is, especially in this era now of, do I recruit high school guys or do I recruit portal guys, right? Mm-hmm. Your selling point, right? And if you could touch on this a little bit, selling point to colleges is, look, these aren't high school guys, right? Like they know how to function on their own as, a 16-year-old kid, a 17-year-old kid where they're living away from home, which kind of, minimizes that development period, right? Because a lot of those guys that go away to school as a high school guy, it's that first year college experience, living in a dorm, all of that stuff. Touch on that a little bit, Coach.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we try and harp on that when we're talking to families, and and it's like, I tell kids all the time, like, look, football is great. Like, it's great. I love this game. It's, afforded me a lot of awesome things around, throughout my life and for my family now. But to your point, when you go to boarding school, it's college light. We call it college light. And so you're doing the things that you are going to have to do when you get out of here, right? There's consultation. You got to like build rapport with your teachers. You got to go see them at office hours. You got to be really proactive and intentional about how you operate as a student. And then you have, you put kids in situations where there's no parent around to always tell you what to do, like when to get up, when to study, like, can you go there? Can you go here? And so like it does allow our kids to build a different level of independence. And then we try, like our school is a college setting. So we try and take the same approach from a football setting where, like the stuff that we're running on defense here is not watered down from the stuff that I ran in the XFL or at Navy. We try and pack as much football in as we can in a short amount of time. Same thing on offense, just so that, from a college standpoint, when you leave here, you're ready academically, you're ready socially. We want to make sure that we are doing the same things where, if we bring kids in and we just play 4-3, cover 3 and let them play fast, it's probably easier for them. But if we're teaching them 4 or 5 fronts, different kinds of blitz, zone blitz, man blitz, like, simulations, if we try and give them as much football knowledge as we can on this end, which is very expensive for us as a staff, and doesn't always mean that it's easy to win games, but I think in the end, it helps our kids be prepped for when they go to the next level, so that like, the language that they're hearing, the level of expectation, like how you practice, how you lift, all those things aren't a surprise for when they get to the next level.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting thing. I mean, being able to teach all that kind of stuff. You probably also have, I'm guessing, pretty good students for the most part, right? Because you had the
Yeah.
Lawrenceville school, so that's a good luxury that you have, that you can really kind of go into a little bit more complexities. Because obviously the kids they're coming there, their thought process is 100% on going to college,
Yeah.
regardless if they play football, right?
Right.
And being successful from that standpoint. So it's really cool, and I think that it's important, for guys preparing to college to really try to get them to learn the next parts of the game that'll help them be able to succeed, so they're not as wide eyed when they come in.
Yeah. For sure.
Talk about kind of your development program, because every prep school we've talked to kind of has a little slightly different approach, because you guys all have different unique situations, right? Within your own school. Talk about what you do from, kind of a year-round standpoint to develop the players and, keep them on the path you want them on.
Yeah, for sure. So like ours really starts like in April, right? So like that's when we are getting, sometime between March and May, you're kind of figuring out who's going to be on your roster for the next year, whether it's kids, freshmen coming in, transfers coming in, PGs, whatever it is. And so we actually use WhatsApp for a lot of our stuff. So those kids we get those kids in our WhatsApp meeting room. And then we will actually start putting things through. So like we have a guy film all of our, we'll take a kid every year and we'll film like our spring conditioning drills. Like we do like all of our drills, how we warm up, all that stuff. And we have a library that we share out with our current kids. We teach everything every year like they don't know one. And so we share out all the videos of like how we warm up, how we do this drill. And so that even the kids that are coming in, like we have an outside linebacker coming in this year from California, and he's not going to be able to get here this spring. So like a perfect opportunity for us to be able to have all that stuff filmed for him so that he can do that. So like when he does get here in August, like he's been able to practice the warm up, like how we stretch, how we do certain drills. And so we start that from a football standpoint. Same thing. We share out our, our playbook. We will have 2 or 3, depending on the group, how many people are returning starters. We'll have 2 or 3 virtual mini camps in the summer just because we aren't, like our kids aren't here, and so we'll have what we do. The way we do that is we have 4 days in the summer where our kids will hop on Zoom. And what we do is we take like Monday, Tuesday as offense, and we go through the first 4 installs that we'll go through in training camp. And then we'll come back on Wednesday, Friday, and we'll do the same thing for defense. And we'll do that again like 2 other times in the summer. And then when we get back for preseason in August, your first 4 installs are really day 1 and day 2. So like you've actually done your install 3 to 4 times before you ever even get here and do it. So like from a mental standpoint, you're in good shape. Then it's some of the physicality is trying to like get kids to understand how we practice. Right. And because we like I coached at the Naval Academy for a really long time. And we one of the things that we did there, it would always, it kind of translate well here, is that we had no time. I mean, like you had you had a position meeting during lunch for like 30 minutes with the kids. And then like when they came back in the afternoon, special teams meeting, then you were out to practice, and so like you had to get a lot done in a short amount of time, and you had to be really creative about how you do it. So that's been really easy for me transitioning here because I'm used to doing it that way. But the same thing is how we practice. We go fast. We get a ton of reps. It's not a lot of walking and talking. Like we had a really good job. I think we've done a great job as a staff is teaching our kids how to practice at a really high pace without pads on, which has been huge because, like our training camp starts August 20th and our first game is the first weekend in September. And granted, we can be here that time. But those first few practices where you can't put on pads.
Acclimation.
We got to get a lot done. And so like, if you came and watched our first practice, I was actually watching it last night. You watch our first practices this summer. it is really fast and really physical because we teach our kids to play with their hands on defense, play with their hands on offense. So like we can get a lot done at a high pace that's really physical without having guys on the ground. That's been huge. So like a lot of it is just teaching our kids the way that we want things done and then just get them through that way. And then like throughout the preseason, the development is heavily on, what type of person we want you to be. And that kind of boils down to, we have one team rule, which is be a gentleman. And it's like, for me, it's like, it's really simple. Like Coach Grove was the same way. It wasn't a whole list of rules. He was like, hey, just be a good dude. And so like if you're about to say something, do something, Snapchat something, and you have pause that a good dude wouldn't do that, he probably shouldn't, right? And like, don't test me on the rule because I don't budge on that, right? And so,
right.
So a lot of our stuff is, some character development stuff. There's how to treat women. Obviously, we have all of our managers are young ladies that are here that want to get into coaching or the personnel side down the road. We also, our DB coach is a female. So like we that is huge for us. And it's nice to have Coach Jill holds takes a whole night during preseason where she's just talking to the men about how to treat women. And like from the thought process of like how a woman feels, and so there's some neat things that we get to do where, we feel really strongly that the character development matches really well with how we want things done from a football standpoint.
Makes sense. As far that's interesting too. So when you hired, is she a teacher in the school, the female coach?
No, so she actually teaches at a public school in the area.
Okay. So when you hired her, what kind of acclimation? Because obviously, almost all of the high school boys are not used to having a female coach, right? Maybe none of them have ever. I would venture to guess none of them ever have. What was there kind of is there any learning experience from their standpoint? To be able working with someone that they sometimes may view as, hey, that person hasn't played the game, exactly that kind of thing. Was there something from that standpoint that had to be learned at all?
We had so Jill came my second year here. So the first year here, I didn't hire any staff. I wasn't able to hire any staff because I was hired late. She came in the second year, but we had some really strong leadership on the team. And so like we, in that first year, only maybe 2 coaches from that first staff actually stuck the second year. But we had done a great job of building a culture where our kids trusted us, and so like more of it was just like, for her, it was a little intimidating because we had, she was coming in coaching this level of varsity football for the first time. And she had 4 Division I DBs. And it was like, hey,
wow.
Right. Like, hey, you don't have to do too much here. Like,
that's a good place.
Not bad.
Yeah. And so like,
just take it off.
Well, yeah, it was like Coach Jill started in the spring. And, like she was like, I think she was like, do I ease in? And I just, I first got her there on her first day. I was like, hey, you got him. And she's like, what? I was like, you got him. You're good. Go ahead, do it. And like,
right. I hired you for a reason, right?
Yeah.
Like, I know what you can do. Go do it.
Yeah, and it's like, I know you've not done this with this caliber of kid, but I know you can. So go do it. Like, I got confidence in you. And the great part is like, and this is like philosophical a little bit. Like if you go look at some of, what Joe Ehrman does, like if you understand men and boys, right? So like, this is like, kind of philosophical, just what I believe. And there's a lot of studies on it, but like men in general just want to be seen, nurtured, and loved, right? Like at the root of it, we just want to feel important and feel valued, right? And so like, I think what really helped her was she went in there and like, she didn't try to be like, I'm in charge, this is what we're doing. She just like showed them that she cared about them and she valued them. And like, Coach Jill's here on every Sunday during the season, and they have book club where they talk about nothing football related. She just has like an open forum where they can talk about what's going on in their lives, like, trouble with a girlfriend, trouble with school, trouble with a friendship, like, and that went a long way, and so like it was quick, and a lot of it was just, going back to the point from the beginning was like having experience being under some really, really phenomenal coaches that were probably better at empowering coaches than anything else. And really taking that model. So like that helped her huge. It was actually kind of a seamless transition because I had a lot of confidence in her and our staff had a lot of confidence in her too.
Right.
That's awesome. That's interesting.
That is
and
cool.
I would have liked to have Coach 4 DVs in you can hang that goes right on your resume right there. That's great. That's a great resume builder right there. No doubt about it. That's awesome. As far as so what is talk about the environment at the Lawrenceville school. So what is the school like for people who don't know, right? So and that's one of the things we usually when we have prep school coaches, we like to talk about that because it's not so, people understand what their public high school's like. They understand what a lot of the program schools are like. They kind of have a decent amount. There's a lot more knowledge out there about it, right? So talk with that environment's like at the Lawrenceville school.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is it's a American school that has an international feel to it. We have kids from all over the world, probably 15-16% of our population is international.
Cool.
Yeah, which is cool,
cool.
and then you have kids from all over the country. I think what we've done a really good job of here as a school is not just athletic, just across the board is there's a lot of investment in scholarship aid funding, which has allowed us to make this affordable for all families because we're need-based aid. So we have kids from every demographic, every background, socioeconomically, we're everywhere along the spectrum. So there's just a ton of different types of kids here, right? And so there's, like I had a conversation with I went to independent school in Baltimore. That's like a phenomenal school, and kids typically like leave there, go to other schools in Baltimore. And I was talking to a parent of a young lady that goes there that was thinking about this place. And what Lawrenceville does, it gives you just like a different type of learning because you are like, if you go to how we do education here, it's called the Harkness method. And so there's no lecture-based learning here. Every class is a discussion-based. So if you were to walk into a classroom here at Lawrenceville, like it'd be an oval-shaped table. There's a maximum of 13 kids in the class. The teacher sits at the table and it's like a conversation, right? So you have to be an active participant every day in class. Like you can't hide. It very much feels like, I tell people it's like when you get to your major in college and what that classroom setting feels like, that's what it's like to go to school here, And so, so it's a different level of investment in what you are doing academically, right? And like, you don't necessarily have to be like the best student in the world, but like what you have to do is you have to be invested in your learning, right? There's also like office hours and consultation and those things that you typically don't have at your regular day school where, you have to learn how to take advantage of that. You can go sit with a teacher during that period, like during study hall here in the evening. A teacher might come over to your house and sit with you and work with you. You know what I mean? So like, there's a lot of resources to help you through this place if you take advantage of it, but it still is a place where like, we're going to like, I'm an advisor to 6 kids that not all of them are athletes. But like a lot of it is like, hey man, like, have you you struggled with that test last week? Did you go see your teacher and talk about it? And they're like, huh? And you're like, yeah, you gotta go talk. Like, I'm not gonna do that for you. You gotta learn how to be a self-advocate, you know? And so like,
correct.
Yeah, that's what we're teaching here. Like we have a house system, probably the last part of this really, rather than to take you down a whole admission spiel, but like the house aspect here is very different. They're not dorms per se. It's very Harry Potterish, where your house has tradition, like guys stay in the house as a senior rather than moving to senior housing to be, like a prefect which is essentially like an RA. So like there is a house culture here that is like, that's your home, not just where you sleep, and so
somewhere where they can something like they can take pride in, right? And 100%. They like kind of wear it on their sleeve, or hey, these are our house colors, or just something that adds a little bit more to where you're living on a regular basis than just, like you said, like a dorm.
Right. And so like what you'll see that's kind of neat that happens here is you'll get, the football kids are really tight, and that's just because of the culture that we've built. So if you like go to our dining hall in the evening, like it's like all the football kids are sitting at two tables, and they're bringing kids into the table that don't play football. It's a pretty cool deal. But then you'll see like some of the oddest couples, because they are, guys they don't live together.
Living together. Yeah. Or they don't.
But you'll see like this guy that's walking across campus that's 6'5", 290 pounds with a little guy from Hong Kong that is, like, they're both into like anime and Call of Duty. And, like, they're like the best buds ever.
That's wild.
So, you see some odd couples, but it's really neat because our kids have an opportunity to have like a full experience of this place. And like my expectation here is that you take advantage of the opportunity. Like if you ask any kid that's been on a visit here, I take them to the KC, which is our main auditorium. And I always go, hey, look, that stage right there, it's like a Broadway theater. We have school meeting here. You'll also be in a dance concert. And they're like, what? And you're like, yeah, dude, we're going to brainwash you. I mean, like Raf Dunn is 6'4", 215 pounds. He's like, this 3-star, 4-star safety going to Wisconsin. And he was the centerpiece in the ballet the spring that he graduated. Like, what I mean? Like, and it like, why not? Like, why not take advantage of that? We had like Harry Lynch was a guy that played, he's at Tufts. And he was just like a big meathead and like, ended up being one of the top, like just like on a whim decided to do the musical his senior year and was like brought down the house, you know what I mean? And like, but he had the confidence to do it. Because like our kids support like our guys go
like, man, go do that. Like you can be the lead. Like go, you really should. Like we've seen you do this, in the locker room, or look, you're always the character in our meeting room. Like go do that. Like, where, at some public schools, guys shy away from that because they're not around each other all the time, or that culture just hasn't been, embraced by a lot of head coaches because it's only about ball, or, it really it's bothersome me when you see sometimes like head coaches that don't even know everybody's name in their program. Yet you're asking them to, show up in August and fight through the heat and do all this other kind of stuff when, coach, you don't even know my name, right? Yeah. Like that's something that I think is created at your school that adds value to just who a person is at the end of the day, because look, and agree to disagree, right? Like football ends at some point. And if you haven't developed the character or the person behind the helmet or in the pads, right? Like, then what are we really doing this for?
Yeah, I tell our coaches all the time, like we were in Charlotte for the AFCA and we were out at dinner, our first dinner. And like, we try to keep it light because it's just like a little bit of a vacation and a little bit of a reunion, see people. But like, we always try to get together, the first night and kind of talk through things. And like, I always just kind of remind them of like, like I want you guys to go out here and try and like network, and hopefully you guys get some opportunities that can take you on to the next level and chase some of those things. But just like, always remember, to your point, it's like football is such a small piece of these kids' puzzle. And so like if we just spend like the year that we have with them, or the 2 years or the 3 years or the 4 years that we have with them, and it's a majority football, we've just failed at an opportunity to like be a positive impact on like the rest of the world, not just that kid, but just like the rest of the world and all the people that come in contact with that kid. So like we got to spend a lot of time on like trying to build those guys up to be good men, and like good women that leave our program. Because if we can do our part, just like on the 40, 50 kids that we work with a year, like over time that helps, you know what I mean? So that part's neat. It's huge here where we're constantly trying to build up the whole kid, not just a football kid. because all the kids on our team are not going to go play football in college. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
We don't cut kids out of the program. We have, every year we have 3 or 4 kids that have never ever even seen the sport that come out and play. So like, and we want those kids. We want them there just because we think what we do from a program standpoint is going to help those kids out here and after.
That makes a ton of sense. Recruiting. So you're working hard on making sure they're all great guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then recruiting comes in, which is the dog-eat-dog world, right? So talk about how you've been able to handle recruiting. Obviously, it's changed dramatically in the last few, even from when you were coaching in college. So you could probably speak to that a little bit too. So just talk about, how you handle recruiting and, I don't know. Obviously you have some really big time guys. So NIL may be part of the deal for some of those guys. Talk about that part of it.
Yeah, for sure. It's rough, man. And like,
it's rough brutal, is right? Rough is the rough is the easy way to put it,
Yeah, and so I think one of the things that like I hate about
go ahead, coach. This is your platform, brother. Go ahead, let it fly.
It's like like a lot of people, like when I'm talking to a family, they like the first, everybody wants to know. They're like, well, who do you know? And you're like, it's such a like douchebaggy kind of answer, because like I know a lot of people just because I coached for a really long time, and
100% with a lot of people at a high level, right?
Right. And so like it like I try not to say that, but I have to say it. And so like I think the one thing that we benefit from is I know a lot of guys. So a lot of guys are going to come by here just because they know me, and they also like I've been in their chair longer than I've been in this chair. So like when I say like this kid is that, they tend to trust me. Right. And now does I can tell families like just because I know James Franklin and I know these guys, like it does not mean
don't mean shit.
Yeah, like it doesn't mean like.
Well, it means you can have a conversation with them about 100%,
and that's what I say. Like
the way Dave always puts it is like, look, I'll get you kind of in the door, right? Like I can get you now, like a conversation, but that's literally
look. Right, I can get them to look at your film.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, and maybe you're the other intangibles around it, but it's
or hey, like right, like I can.
It doesn't mean he's going to do something about it. It doesn't mean So again, I'm sorry, Coach. Go ahead. I don't want to.
I can get you on the top of the pile of this fucking pile. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, and so it's like, I just try to tell people, I'm like, what I can guarantee you and I can promise you is that I can get you an actual eval. Like you're like, and I tell people this all the time. I'm like, dude, like being a prep school head coach is a tough game because you got to, a lot of your kids are coming from other high schools and all that stuff. And it's like, hey, look, I'm not making a commentary on your current coach, like, or where you are. Like, it's just that, like, your coach might be able to send film to a school. Like, the difference is I'll send it and they'll actually call me back and have like an honest conversation about it. I think the other piece that we do here is like, we're really honest with our kids. You know what I mean? And I'm like, if you think you are an FCS player, but you're not, like, I'm going to tell you. I don't want you to, and I try to do that on the front end where kids are looking at our school and I give them a evaluation piece and say like, here's what I think you can be here. That's not a promise. But if you think, if you want to come here in PG and you think you're doing a PG year so you can go to LSU, that ain't happening. You know what I mean? Like, so like, I don't want to promise you something, or if you are, I've evaluated you as probably at the top end, a D2 kid, and you want to come here and go to Lafayette, like, I can't promise you that. And I also don't think that is going to happen. Right. So like, I try to do a really good job on the front end with recruiting, is being really honest with people. And then throughout the process we have a really good plan, like, especially with the kids now, like that are the 2026 kids, we're like, hey, look, if you have things, our kids, if you ask any of our kids, we evaluate what we have. Like, we don't evaluate what we don't have or who's recruiting us. Right. So like, if Oklahoma is recruiting you and sending you stuff, but like Tennessee State has offered you, like, let's focus on Tennessee State. And then if Oklahoma comes in and they offer you, like, all right, we can go put that in the conversation. So we try to keep it, be really realistic with our kids as far as how to navigate that process. And then we also try to do a really good job of as far as timing goes, right? So like our 26s, if possible, are going to be done and committed by the time they leave school or early June, right? Just because we want to get them out of the way. We want to make sure that they have opportunities, just because, things are crazy. Like, you wait until after July and there may not be anything left for you.
Correct.
And so like, I think honesty is the key. We've built a really good reputation here with our kids and kids that look at us, that we're going to be honest all the time. And I think that helps because we've now built a resume where, if we say a kid is this and he ends up being that, people start to trust us. Right. So like over the years, we've worked really hard at trying to be really trustworthy people and honest about the situation. So like it kind of now is rolling for us, and it's not as tough for our kids to accept where they are, just because we've kind of built that rapport.
No, your point about when I'm sure it's parents that ask you this, like, who do you know? It's actually such a funny question, because obviously you're asking me because you know nobody. So any people that I know is probably more than you. And are we getting into who I know versus who that person knows?
Yeah.
They may, I may know these 50 people. That person may know a different 50 people.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's such a funny thing, because their involvement in the recruiting process is as important, if not more important, than your involvement in it. And one of the things, it's always, and you have for the most part, you're going to have, I would get, I'm just guessing, kids that are going to be a lot easier to explain this to, because parents are already coming to you, and the kids are already coming to you thinking, hey, I want to go play in college. So you're able to probably have a little bit better conversation from that standpoint. But it is always interesting when like kids say they want to go to this school, this school, this school, this school, and it's like, have you even filled out a questionnaire? Have you put yourself in their database yet? Like,
yep,
you
don't even know who you are.
Like. So when I reach out, you're not even in the database. They don't even have a reference to check on it. So it's but it's amazing in the era of all this information that the simple and people, and I bet you they ask even the very well educated students that you have. Okay, I bet you even they're like, where do I go to fill out a I'm like, go to go to football Rutgers football section questionnaire. Like, it's right there. It's not like it's like they're not hiding it. It's not some hidden thing. They want you to fill it out so they have your database, because at minimum you're going to come to their camp, right? They're going to get $80 out of you. So they want you to fill it out.
At least 80. At least 80.
Right.
I think, I think the other
fill it out. So it's not like they don't want you to fill it out. They want you to fill it out.
Yeah.
And it's funny, because I've had a lot of college coaches and have recently a couple of these situations where they said to me, I don't have this person. Has he filled out a form?
Yeah.
I'm like, no, obviously he hasn't. Since you're telling me this, so obviously he hasn't. Well, that's the first step, and it's like, so so it's crazy, because they don't realize, and you probably tell them this, they don't realize that they actually, without them doing their side of it, they can actually make you as a coach not look like you've done your side, because they haven't even filled out. So they're interested in this, but they haven't even filled out an interest in that school. Yeah. And that's obviously that's part of your whole process that you have. And you're an admissions person too. So you understand that, like, if someone hasn't reached out to Lawrenceville and usually filled out a contact us form or something, as far as an interest level,
you don't know.
You wouldn't know who they are anyway, right? So
absolutely.
And it's the same thing in college. But the nice thing is that your kids already have at least started to go through the process, because that's how they got to Lawrenceville in the first place. So they kind of understand it a little more. But it's wild from that standpoint in recruiting. That it's funny because when they ask that question, it's like, well, your part is as important as my part. Everyone assumes that it's a coach's job only to do all this stuff, but they don't realize that they have a job too. And it's not just about the marketing part, putting your clips on Twitter and all those things. It's about actual due diligence, because it's not
it's continuous.
Exactly. It's a conversation, and you got to be a part of it. And we do that with our kids. We teach them how to set up their Twitter page. We tell them, I'm telling, hey, look, if a coach sends you this, you got to do this. If you got to
actually respond.
Yeah. This generation, it's funny because they it was 2 years ago. I sent a group text out, like a text message. And it was to our captains, who are all they're all buddies, and they're with each other all the time. They live together. And then we were talking in the group chat. And then after I finished talking, one of them goes, hey, who's in this chat? I'm like, wait, none of you guys have each other's cell phone numbers? And they're like, no,
because they all communicate through a social media app, right? Listen, and I do it with if we run a showcase, right, where I have 7 different coaches, and it's all right, a group chat, and guys, and I'm like, the first thing I say is, hey, if there's a number, everybody respond with name, position, where you're from, right? So everybody kind of it's amazing how many of these guys don't even have each other's number.
Yeah, so it's
actual cell phone numbers, because it's a social media app that they communicate through, or it's Snapchat. What are we doing?
Yeah, for sure, and that's part of the process is teaching these kids and that goes back to the whole life skills part. It's hey, respond to emails, respond to text messages, learn how to,
because you never know. You just never know. Never burn a bridge, right? Yep. Or hey, you actually have to run. It's not like with Dave and I where we do a lot of the youth stuff, and a kid may have an Instagram page, but he's in 5th grade. So are you talking to the kid, or are you talking to mom or dad? It's look, man, you're in high school now. Mom can oversee your Twitter page, but she shouldn't be the one filling out your questionnaires, the one that's responding to emails. At some point, dude, you're going to have to do your own laundry. So start here. And mom can proofread things, but eventually it has to be you, and that's really something that this generation, I think those life skills, I was just listening to a podcast with Dan Lanning, right, from Oregon, and their process of teaching the life skills, the financial literacy, right? Because these kids now are getting bags of money, and it's different when it's mom or dad's money. Now this is your money. He said, I thought it was a great line. He's like, look, man, you can go out and buy the chain, but it doesn't have to say your full name. We can just work with an initial. You know what I mean? You ain't got to go get that car. Go get this car that's more affordable, makes more sense. Those skills, I think, are just unparalleled, right? To put your guys kind of ahead of the game. Those 4 guys that you messaged were probably sitting on couches across from each other going, wait a minute, what the hell? We're all talking to coach and staring at each other at the same time.
No doubt.
Excuse me.
No doubt about it. No, it's very interesting, and but it's a big part of it. And now, as far as how you deal with the college coaches, do you do any showcases in the spring with them, and what are kind of some of the things that you do to
so we do 6 showcases. So our first one is Wednesday, so we call them Big Red Field Days, so we do 6 of those. And so we'll have college coaches come, but what we also do is our situation is so different. So perfect example is one of our PGs that's coming in this year from Chicago is coming. He's flying in tonight, and so he's going to come work out tomorrow, right? And so so he can come to 4 of the 6, but what we do is we tape all of them. So we film
man.
all of those showcases, and then we send those out every week. So like if like
it's a great point. That's coach. It's a great idea. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's a great idea.
It was we had a kid, Brendan Delaney, that's at Stanford right now. There were a bunch of schools that wanted to come see him, but he was coming from Canada, could only come once. And so like, I was like, hey, look, we got to make sure we film everything, because these kids that can only come a few days, we want to get their spring recruiting going. Because it's like, they have their film from this past fall, but we want to show what progress they've made since the spring, and so like,
absolutely.
So we film all those. And the way we do those, we kind of run those. It's this year, it's really like part agility, part indie, part like group work.
Yes.
And this year, our kids, the thing that I also like to do is I always like to talk to our kids and see what they like. This group this year, we had done our showcase deals where it was like we were doing it one kid at a time through the drill, so we could ISO the film, which is great. But the kids this year were like, hey, coach, what if we did 2 kids at a time and we made it a competition? So if we're doing tags, let's make it a competition. So like, this group this year, they love to compete, which is awesome.
Damn right.
So like, so we've changed up our field day a little bit this year to make it more of still doing the same things that we like to showcase, the movements and all that stuff. But it will be more of a competition setting this year, which is awesome. The kids are fired up about it. So, but yeah, that's what we do in the spring. We also, like the nice part here is that if a coach needs to come watch a kid work out in the afternoon, they live here. And so,
hey, buddy, you got to be here at 2:00, right? Like, you're not like, hey, I only have this window, right? Coach, I think that's a great point. 2 great points that you brought up is, you want feedback from your players. Like, they're not telling you what to do, but they're adding to it, and they feel a part of it, which I think this generation is really big on, right? I always say they're the why generation. Like, coach, why are we doing this? Mm-hmm. Like, there needs to be a purpose behind it, and then to add their feedback, like they want to be a part of it. And ultimately, that's what you want as well. You want your captains to, be that middle ground of communication from player to coach. Like, sometimes those guys aren't willing to come talk to the head coach, especially if they're an underclassman. They feel intimidated. So those guys can be that, olive branch or that bridge to you. And I think that's a great part of it, right? And then Dave always talks about, especially now, because he was always a high school coach, and now he's gone into more so youth coaching with his son and whatnot. And the competition based, it's unbelievable. If you're telling a kid like, hey man, you're running this 40, but if you now say, hey, you're running this 40 against this person,
it's like a different level,
totally different game changer in terms of like, now that kid that doesn't want to run that 40 sure as hell wants to run that 40 because that stuff is huge, coach. Like, absolutely. I love it.
This year was great. I mean, like we've tried to incorporate our kids, and it's not like we have captains because the school wants, the captain thing for me, like I'm not a huge captain guy. It's just one of these things where they like keep a track of it. But really the senior class is the captain. So we have like a captain group chat, but it's just the senior class. And that is like this year, one of our managers, Lily, will be a senior. So she'll be in that group chat because she's a senior, right? And like we go to like, and it's great. Like we empower them too. I mean, like there's been times over the years where like our managers and like what I tried to do with our managers was like, it's not only girls. We have a young guy he does all the filming, but like a lot of the girls that are doing it want to get into coaching or personnel. So we go to them about a ton. Like they're like, hey, look, we feel like we could do this. I think the guys need this. I think, this year it was wild. Like we had a little lull in the season because we just, boarding school's weird. You can get like these weird, like sweeping sicknesses in the beginning of the school year because like everybody from all over the world,
right? Yeah, you're like, holy shit, I never saw this disease. Like, what are we talking about?
And so like we had a little bit of a lull, and then when we started to get healthy, the kids one day at the, like at the end of practice, I pull them up, we do our deal, and then I'm like, hey, anybody got anything? And the kids were like, hey, can we put on full pads tomorrow? Like I feel like we need another physical practice tomorrow. And you're like, on Thursday, you're like, yeah, all right, cool. Let's do, but we try to do a really good job of like, listening to the kids. And I think when you actually listen to them, they don't take advantage of it. Like they're not trying to get out of anything. They really are telling us when they feel like we need to ramp up, and sometimes they want to ramp up and we're like, we don't need to ramp up, guys. We're good.
Right.
Like, trust me.
Or they want to dial it back. Like, coach,
Yeah.
we had a lot of intense. We feel like we got what we got and we're good. Right. Like you have to understand that pulse of your team. And I think that's, to me, just part of doing your due diligence as a coach. But sometimes guys overlook that and feel, because the old school mentality of this is my team, we're going to do it my way. Like those days, they're numbered. And if you're not embracing what your team and the feedback you're getting from them, I think you're doing a disservice to your players.
Yeah, you get a chance to empower your kids. I mean, like our O-line at the end of the year, we ran for a minimum of 200 yards in our last 5 games. And it was because like our O-line decided they were like, we never did inside run on Thursdays because for us, that's a situational day.
Yes.
And our O-line's like, coach, we need to be able to get inside run on Thursdays.
And you're like, sure, we'll fit it in.
All right, we'll figure it out. And it was that was something that they felt like they needed. And just to get one more run at it and clean it up. And
now next year, that team might not need that.
100%. And so like it has been really good to, have them be active participants in that piece, so that's huge.
Absolutely. No doubt about it. No, it's been awesome having you on. I really learned a ton about what you're doing. It's
appreciate it, coach.
It's really phenomenal. I love your really wide scope, approach to really developing the full player and really helping them to take care of what's the most important thing, which is getting them to the next level, regardless of whether they're playing football or not. Mm-hmm. Although that's probably a tough job to do in today's era, but as far as convincing them that that's really important, but it's but the kids that are there are there for that reason too. So it's great talking to you. I love what you're doing, and we look forward to seeing you soon.
Yeah, appreciate you guys. Glad we got it worked out.
It's all good, coach. It's all good. Appreciate you
day.
taking the time, buddy. Enjoy.
No doubt. Y'all take care.
All right, bye.
Talk soon.
All right, that was awesome. Really great pod. I learned a lot about the Lawrenceville school and
good scope, man. Good scope. You know what I'm saying? I think we've had a bunch of these, post-grad type schools or these boarding type schools. Every one of them does it a little different. And I think it's good for our viewers because like you mentioned, Dave, everybody knows what a high school, what a high school program is or your public school is or, private school. But these boarding schools are very different in the way that they scope it. And, I just think that to educate our viewers on hey, this might be an option for you, or just to kind of see where they go with it and how they do things. Obviously they have some, advantages in terms of having their kids with them all the time to develop full person. But I think coach is doing it. He has a really good scope on it, based off of kind of where he's been and what he's done. He's been in some of those roles at the next level. And like he said, sitting in this chair is different than other chairs. So I think it was excellent. Good dude, man. Good dude. That's somebody that you'd send your kid to and okay, he's going to be all right.
Yeah, I'll be fine. No doubt about it. Very good. And then we're back Thursday, right? Thursday?
Yes, Thursday. We're Thursday, Friday this week. So we got 3 this week.
Okay, cool. Stay on after we get off. I just want to ask you a quick question.
Yeah, you're good.
All right, cool. All right, great job. Great little podcast today.